This is a story of a man battling the NBA for his right to play. A story of a man missing out on roughly $8.6 billion, and a story of a man who would later almost hire a mobster to kill his ex-head coach. This is the story of four-time NBA All-Star Spencer Haywood.
Sensational play, one of the game's all-time plays.
To understand Spencer, we must first go back and understand his childhood. Spencer was born one of 10 children, 3 months early, 3 weeks after his father's funeral. His mom was back within days in the cotton fields of Silver City, Mississippi. She would load one bag over her shoulder with hundreds of pounds of cotton, and on the other shoulder she would carry a future Hall of Famer. At the age of 4, Spencer was already taking on his own labor in the cotton field, making $2 a day picking from sunset to sunrise, utilizing the extra joints in each of his fingers he was born with.
I was told as a kid, you're going to be the best cotton picker. Little did I know that these hands were for something else.
Once the day of cotton picking was over, the family would return to their shack without gas or electricity, where they slept 3 to a bed. The rules were different for people like us in a place like that, Haywood later wrote. We just lived. You had babies and you worked and you tried to survive.
We didn't have money to buy a basketball. My mother put together this croaker sack and put cotton in the sack. And we made us a basketball, put a barrel rim up on the tree there in the yard, and we went to bowling. We could not bounce, but we would like say bump, bump, pass, or shoot. And that was our rules. So that's how I learned to love the game.
At the age of 17, Spencer saved up $17, which he would use to bus to his brother in Chicago, who then moved him to Detroit, where his basketball career would start. When he arrived at Detroit, Spencer could only read at a second grade level, but he found other means of success. Spencer shot up to 6'8" and would begin his basketball career. He would dominate high school basketball in Detroit, bringing his school a state championship. He would continue his basketball journey at Trinidad Junior College on a full scholarship, where he was arranged to play from his former high school coach, Will Robinson. In his freshman year at Trinidad, he averaged 28 points per game while ripping down 22 boards. And that was enough to get Spencer selected to the 1968 Olympic basketball team, where he would survive the tryouts. At 19, he was the youngest to ever do it.
19-year-old Spencer Haywood of Trinidad Junior College, the youngest lad ever to make an American Olympic basketball team, is the star of this one.
He led the team in scoring at 16.1 points per game, dominating internationally now, along with future Hall of Fame guard JoJo White. He finished 9-0 in Olympic play. He shot a field goal percentage of 71.9%, a record at the time. After his stay in the Olympics, Haywood was coveted by many colleges. He decided to transfer to the University of Detroit for his sophomore season. After his sophomore season was up, he signed a significant $1.9 million contract with the ABA's Denver Rockets. He became the first underclassman in history to play in a professional league. In just his rookie year, he would put the basketball world on notice.
I was Rookie of the Year, Most Valuable Player, leading scorer, leading rebound, Most Valuable Player in the All-Star games.
Best guy in the league, no question.
At 21, Spencer also made one of the most impactful decisions of his life, although it was unknowingly. Spencer was offered a shoe deal by a company known as Blue Ribbon Sports, a company that would later go by Nike. The deal was either $100,000 straight up in cash or 10% of the company in exchange for promoting their shoes. Haywood's agent encouraged him to go with the cash straight up, and he did. Although he had no way of knowing at the time, this was a huge mistake. Although it seemed like the right choice because Blue Ribbon Sports was a relatively unknown company, only founded 6 years prior in 1964. But that 10% would now be worth roughly $8.6 billion today. It can also be reasoned that Haywood would have been bought out before it reached that value, but he still missed out on a significant amount of money nonetheless. Haywood's next step was to shock the basketball world. Attempting to make the jump to the NBA without 4 years of college was never done before, but Spencer and the Seattle Supersonics didn't mind. A legal battle between Haywood and the NBA would ensue. Little to either party's knowledge that it would lay the groundwork for the NBA in the next 50 years. Sam Schulman, who was the owner of the Sonics at the time, can now be looked at as one of the most forward thinkers in NBA history. Sam was the first to snatch up Spencer with a 6-year, $1.5 million contract after his year with the ABA was up. Sam and Spencer would battle in court together for his right to play in the NBA as an underclassman. Their main argument was that the 4-year rule infringed on Haywood's right to make a living. The case would work its way up to the Supreme Court, where they favored Haywood 7-2. In response to this, the league instituted a hardship rule. This would allow players who could prove they needed to play for financial reasons to enter the league early. Now, for the first time in history, leagues were turning toward drafting high schoolers. This was later seen with the ABA Stars drafting Moses Malone and the Philadelphia 76ers of the NBA later drafting Darryl Dawkins. The hardship rule was abolished in 1976 and replaced with a more modern early entry procedure. Haywood would be selected to 4 NBA All-Star teams during his tenure with the Supersonics. He displayed his grace and finesse with the ball to a range of NBA fans now. With his signature turnaround jumper, he massacred teams offensively. He was big enough to go over guards and agile enough to go around bigs. In his best season with the Sonics, he scored 29 points and grabbed 13 rebounds a game. He led the Supersonics to their first playoff berth in history under head coach Bill Russell. He led them to the second round, where they would lose to the eventual champions, the Golden State Warriors. Next season, Haywood would be dealt to the Knicks, and this is all according to an archived New York Times article from October 24th, 1975. When Russell was asked in a telephone interview why he had traded Haywood to the Knicks, he replied, "I have no conscience. I could have traded him somewhere else for more players, but I didn't want to do that. He wanted the Knicks, and I have a special feeling for him as a person. I also know how great a ball player he is, and would be far better off financially with the Knicks." After 5 injury-plagued and underwhelming seasons with the Knicks, Haywood was next dealt to the New Orleans Jazz. His relatively unknown tenure there only lasted 34 games, where he averaged a respectable 25 and 10. He was next dealt to the Los Angeles Lakers in 1980. With the Lakers, he would team up with an excited rookie from Michigan State known as Irvin Johnson. Also on the Lakers was established NBA superstar Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It is beyond fitting that Haywood and Irvin be on the same team. Irvin had left Michigan as a sophomore to enter the NBA in 1980. The groundwork Spencer had laid many years before was now being seen in person by him in a big way. Since Spencer's previous legal battles, the LA Lakers were able to select Irvin Johnson with the first pick of the NBA draft, and this would begin their dynasty. It would significantly help Kareem's legacy by having someone who can take off some of the offensive load even if it isn't all scoring. Kareem got an all-time point guard who he would co-lead with to many championships with the Lakers, thanks to Spencer Haywood. But by the end of the first regular season in LA, the Hollywood style of life would catch up to Spencer.
I tripped on my own shoe. Because I fell into cocaine.
After Haywood fell asleep during a team workout and caused various other disruptions, the Lakers suspended him after Game 3 of the NBA Finals, which the Lakers won against the Philadelphia 76ers in 6 games. After his suspension, things would take a turn for the worse. According to an archived Los Angeles Times article from June 5th, 1980, from a first-person perspective of Spencer, he says, "I left the forum and drove off in my Rolls Royce that night, thinking one thought, that Westhead must die. In the heat of anger and the days of coke, I phoned an old friend of mine, a genuine certified gangster. We sat down and figured it out. Westhead lived in Palos Verdes, and we got his street address. We would sabotage his car, mess with the brake lining," Haywood recalled. But the mother of the former Olympic basketball star persuaded him not to go through with the plot, threatening to turn him in if he went through with it.
It was my year in LA. The best, the worst, and all in between.
Next year, Spencer would lay low in Italy, playing one season of professional basketball there before a brief return with the Washington Bullets. After Spencer's retirement, he checked himself into rehab, and he's now saying he's been sober for over 2 decades. From the cotton fields to the Olympics, from the ABA to making NBA history and laying the groundwork for many dynasties to come, from stardom to rock bottom and then recovery, this is the intricacy of Spencer Haywood. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. That was a lot to get out and a lot of research put into this, so I obviously love to be able to share basketball with you guys, and I also love getting likes and shares and subscribes, so feel free to do all that.